This is Bad Movies We Love, part of the Shice Podcast Network.
If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Hello, Bad Movie Lovers, and welcome to a very special spotlight session here on Bad Movies We Love, where we don't just talk about the movies, we talk to the people who make them. I've really enjoyed doing this interview series, and I've been very fortunate to talk to a lot of interesting people. And in this Filmmaker in Focus episode, I was joined by writer-director Wes Clark to talk about his artistic inspirations, filmmaking in Philadelphia, the democratization of movie making, and his new film, How to Start a Cult in 5 Easy Steps, plus much more. I hope you enjoy the interview. Wes, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is it's going to be fun. I just watched your movie last night, and we're going to get into that. We're going to talk about how to start a cult in 5 easy steps, but I want to know a little bit too before that. How did you get your start in filmmaking, and what are the kinds of movies that influenced you as a filmmaker?
Great question. So I'm 24. I started right out of college. I went to a normal college, none of these artsy fartsy school places. Davidson College in North Carolina. Yes, that is where Steph Curry went. No, nothing else is important about that school. And I took normal classes. I was a political science major. I always knew coming out of college that I wanted to go into film. So it was my family always wanted me to graduate and then do it, and that was fine. Wasn't really like a backup mentality. It was just get educated, whatever, come out with a degree, which has not helped me in any way, shape, or form. And I don't even have a resume. I don't know if I've ever made a resume. So living the dream. But yeah, I loved movies when I was a kid, like to death. I would sneak out of the house, go to movies, 3-4 times a week to the theater once I got my car. And the rest has kind of been history. I was going to be a lawyer for a while. And then my dad was like, he was a lawyer. He hated his life. And he was like, all right, like, you cannot be a lawyer. Do something you like, do something you want to do, make it a business, make it work. And so he really challenged me to do something outside the box if I could. And here we are. So inspiration from movies. I mean, I love a lot of movies. There was a 4-year period in high school, like the 4 years of high school, where I watched one movie a day on average. And it's probably more like 1.1. Like I was like doing 2 some days. So I don't know. I really try to consume anything. My biggest probably is, I don't know, Tarantino is probably the biggest from like a single director. But things like Good Will Hunting has really spoken to me. Movie Lobster, I love to death. Weird stuff. I like a lot of weird stuff. Dogtooth's a little Greek movie, not so little anymore, I guess. Now
Yeah.
he's obviously blown up, but was small when I watched it. He wasn't that nearly as famous as he is today. But yeah, I don't know. Weird stuff. I like seeing stuff I haven't thought of before, and then you get to the end and you're like, oh crap, like what the hell is that? And like that's what I try to bring out in my own work, if I can. It's a hard line to hit.
Well, it looks like your first short film was 2019. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think that was right. Dear Dad, and then I did Casting Dad, both in college.
And yeah, Casting Dad, it's listed as 2023, but in going from making the short films that you made and then sort of going on to features a couple years later, what did you find was the biggest difference? Obviously, like the shoot is going to be different, the time, the effort, the length of the script, a lot of those things. But I think maybe from an artistic perspective, what did you find was the biggest difference from working on developing shorts to developing features?
There's a lot of differences, and honestly, the process in general, you kind of approach it very differently, just from a mindset of, okay, we're only on shoot for 2 days. If things go wrong, all right, we add 1 day and we'll kind of pick everything back up. In a feature, you really can't do that. There's a lot of things with a feature that you just don't get with a short. So You don't get the whole marketing aspect. You don't have to sell it. None of those kind of conversations really come into play. Casting Dad, we ultimately sold to a streamer, Prevo Streaming, which does short films. So that was pretty cool, pretty unique. But again, for the most part, you're not really sending that short anywhere. Maybe some festivals, but even these days, the type of festivals you're getting into with shorts are like not really all that helpful, because a lot of people making shorts these days are actual film directors who are in their 50s who can't get a feature right this second, which, whatever, we can also talk about. But yeah, I don't know. The funny thing is, when I was at school, I found school very easy. I hated school like with a passion, but I did really well. And so I just had an unbelievable amount of free time. And I'm the type of person that wants every moment of the day planned with something to do. I don't watch TV ever. Like if I watch a movie, I watch a movie, but like that's then I kind of view it as, what can I learn from this? What did they do well? What do they do poorly? So I kind of treat that like work if I can. But uh, when you're doing the short, I was able to really like spend 2 months just doing it. I made a feature in college too, which consisted of me running around with a camera, a boom mic, lighting equipment, with two people who I didn't have to pay to make a whole feature. And we made like a 90-minute feature, which was dog shit, and you will never see on the internet ever. But like I learned everything I had to do, right? How do you cast? How do you get a location? How do you just go down the list? And it is thousands of different, very tiny skills that in theory you know how to do, but until you actually go through the motion, you just haven't. So shorts are, I mean, extremely helpful. I wouldn't probably have gotten the money for the feature, How to Start a Cult in 5 Steps, without having Casting Dad. I was able to send that as, hey, this is what I'm able to do with essentially no budget. We earned a $5,000 grant, like an art grant from my school, which funded that project. So, had some money, more than a lot of people have, but still 5K is, I mean, it's really not much in the grand scheme of things. So yeah.
Well, something that stood out to me in reading about your previous work was I want to say the exploration of power dynamics, like who wants control, who's looking for approval, how do we go about sort of investigating those things within ourselves? Is that something that you're like consciously drawn to when you're writing these stories?
That's so funny. That's not at all what I thought you were about to say. I definitely do. Well, what most people point out is my first two are called Dear Dad and Casting Dad. So
Yeah,
usually that's kind of what people go to. And so, like, for me, my father was an alcoholic, and he passed away. And so I have a lot
I'm
of
sorry to hear that.
stories, and like my relationship with him is something that's really integral. I think from a power struggle perspective, it's a lot of like male issue things. So I went to an all boys school growing up. I had one brother. My father was an alcoholic. So like everything in my life has always been like male issues, substance abuse and bullying in schools, and like the role of sports in a young man's life and things like that. And it's, I have a girlfriend of 5.5 years. Like, it's not like women aren't a part of my world. And that actually is a large part of what it means to be a man. How do you treat your mother? How do you treat a sister? How do you treat a girlfriend? But I think that power plays a lot into that. And so I always try to have it in there somewhere. And I think in large part, every movie and every script does. I mean, if you go back to, Vertigo, which is a great representation, there's a scene in that where he goes to the CEO of like the boondock, or whatever, the dock where they're making the ships. And the director plays with literally someone stepping up these two steps, because the office has kind of two levels. It's like, all right, whoever's holding back the information and in the power position is stepping up that, and the other one's sitting. And then when it shifts, he literally stands up and the other one goes down. Like, so little things like that, how you're placing the camera. I try to play with that stuff as much as possible, because I think it's honest. I think it's realistic. If you're having if you have a scene between a 13-year-old boy and his father, like, the father is the father. He's the one who can say, go to bed, go to your room. Like, yes, I'm going to drive you to your friend's house. No, I'm not going to do that. And so they're in a power position. And so if something like that switches for some reason, or, the power dynamic leaves because the father did something he shouldn't, or whatever it may be, like, those are really interesting points that you should be exploiting and talking about. And so, yeah, I think power definitely plays in. And How to Start a Cult with, Thomas Holston Mann's role as the lead, like, that is his character, right? Like, is he in control of this moment? Is he not? What does he have to do to get himself there? I think it makes for very compelling storytelling, because it bases itself off of just reality. I think that's really how reality plays to some extent always.
Yeah, and it's not lost on me that his character asks the members to call him father. And so
Yep.
that dynamic is at play there in sort of a parental light. And I've always been fascinated personally by cults and cult dynamic. I've watched a lot of cult documentaries
Yep.
because I just find the psychology of running a cult and also being a member both sort of equally interesting. And a lot of cult leaders are very charismatic people. And so I'm curious for you, like, what was it like writing the script? Um, and like, where did the inspiration for this come from? Is it something you just always wanted to talk about?
I love that you're into cults. I think a lot of people are into
Not that
cults.
into them.
Well, no, no, but you're interested in the idea.
Yeah.
I think it's, it's easy to attract. And the thing that got me, and I've talked about this before, but the thing that gets me, and I want anyone listening to really think about this, is like I'm from Philadelphia. And so I'm an Eagles fan. I'm a Birds fan. Um, how that isn't a cult, I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I think like your definition of cult, it really depends on how you define it, because a lot of people would say, okay, there's probably a place of worship, like a religion, it's a place of worship. Okay, well, that's the link. Okay, there's like chants or hymns or prayers that you would say, okay, fly Eagles fly. Like, oh, there's like general clothing, like you go to church, you should wear something, or you go to, this or that cult have different apparel. Okay, we're all going to wear, Kelly green, and we're going to have Hertz on the back. Like, you can kind of go down the list, and at the end of the day, you're probably going to find a lot of similarities eventually. And I think that it's something that's really interesting to me. I've always been obsessed with religion and cults and philosophy, and I've read the Bible cover to cover, the Quran. I've read pretty much everything at this point except Scientology, just because you really can't find much on it, which I would be fascinated to learn more, quite frankly. Um, and so, yeah, when I was writing, I really wanted to write about something again that had that male aspect and something that was topical to me as a 22-year-old, but mix it with a lot of the ideas that I've read about, whether I agree with them, don't agree, etc. Where it ultimately landed, and I'm sure it, came across. Most people, kind of get to the same kind of person, is it gets to very Andrew Tate online culture, how to be an alpha, don't be a beta. I can make you this, grand guy with a nice haircut, a suit, and I'm making 10K a month driving a Lambo with a hot girl. Like, it's very that. And there's a lot of those people on the internet. And so as a 22-year-old, every time I click onto YouTube, which is, 10 times a day, uh, magically I'm bombarded with these videos that I don't even click on, but somehow they find me. And they're kind of exciting. Do you want to make $10,000 this month? It's like, well, kinda. I
Yeah.
mean, sure, right? And so a lot of, particularly men, really do they fall for it. And so I really wanted to make something that was encompassing and all of that to be my first film. I think it's a strong way to come out as this is the kind of perspective I have on life. This is what matters to me from a topic perspective, and it's something that I can carry. A lot of filmmakers just focus on like, okay, it needs to look really good, it needs to whatever. I am as technically illiterate as you can possibly imagine. I hire someone for that, David Newbert, who did Boomtown and Willy's Wonderland and whatever. He's a great cinematographer. He touches the camera. I think I touched the camera 0 times on set, literally. I'm all about the story. What is it saying? What is the message? How do we get that message out? Is it actually important? Are we actually hitting it? So that's what I think of in the writing process as much as humanly possible. Does it resonate with the people I want it to resonate with? And does it tell a powerful story in doing so?
Well, good leaders know how to delegate, so give yourself credit for that. You talked about two things. One of them being Philadelphia, um, and I do think there is something interesting about the tribalism that is like very apparent in sports fans and sort of is
Yep.
maybe shown to us as being healthy. I'm a Bills fan, despite the
Oh,
fact that
yep.
I live in California. There is sort of a cult that surrounds the sports teams that we attach ourselves to. So you mentioned your fascination with religion, though, and there's a church in this film. There's a priest in this film. The main character goes to the priest and is really fascinated with the priest's car, like his
Yes.
lifestyle, the notion that the priest has the kind of life that he wants, and in order to shortcut having to like get a job and grind and work his way up. And I mean, like he has that dynamic with the secretary who says like, she worked for a private investigator for 10 years and can smell bullshit. So like he wants to shortcut the work aspect of getting to the things that he wants, and he looks at religion as a vehicle to circumvent that. And
Yep.
so I think that's saying a lot about religion without actually sort of taking the time to sit there and really get into that specifically about religion. But it does still, I think, very pointedly say what it needs to say. And so I'm curious, because you're fascinated with religion. Did you grow up like going to church? Is this like part of your life, so that like you kind of like are looking from the inside out?
No, couldn't be further. So
Mm.
I'm Jewish technically, like by blood. My family is actually Jewish. Like many of my cousins and my grandparents, bar mitzvah. My mother was bat mitzvah. But we really were never raised in any church or anything like that. My father was Christian. We didn't go to church with him. Funny enough, now that I'm an adult, my girlfriend, who's German, like from Germany, not like most American girls who say they're Italian, but they're not. She's like actually German, and like they go to church on Christmas, and they go on New Year's, and they go on Easter, and like that's the German culture is you go to church. And so it's funny now as a Jewish American, I go to church in Germany, which I think is hilarious.
Mm.
And so I really have no problem with religion, to be honest with you. I mean, I find some more appealing than others, and I understand the historical relevance of certain things. Um, I think that from my perspectives, like you hit the nail on the head in terms of him wanting to circumvent the work. There's certain people who come out of college and they think that they should be the CEO, and they don't want to waste the 10 years. And it's funny for me to say this as a filmmaker who like there is no building your way up. You kind of just do the thing and you kind of just jump, more or less.
Mm.
And so like I think that that's a really enticing person because they're going to make kind of stupid decisions in order to cut ahead because there's really no easy way to cut ahead. You kind of have to do something stupid. And, I think that his view on religion is from someone who just has never interacted with it, right? He doesn't go to church, but you do see that his girlfriend, who, Jessica, who says that she is a member of the church, that she has gone, that when the worst thing that happens to her happens, right? And she's a survivor. She's one of the people who does make it out, that doesn't fall for it, partially because she's a woman. And I think they're a little bit more akin to that at younger ages. But regardless, she ultimately ends in church. She ultimately goes there as her refuge. So, I think it's depending on who you're following in the story, you might get a wow, he's really anti-religion. But depending on who you look at on the flip side, it's like, oh, okay, like this person's pro and she lives. So what is that saying? I want to make it, it's a dark comedy. And so we can be absurd. We can be just ridiculous. Like who looks at a priest and goes, yeah, they're rich. Like this kid, he just sees a
Yeah.
Mercedes and he thinks, okay, like this guy's got to be rich. I want to be him. I got to have his job. Like that's a ridiculous thought, but it's a dark comedy. That's the entire point. Um, and so I want people to think a little bit harder in the film without me just saying, I think that's lazy. That's very Netflix. They just like tell you the thing.
Hmm.
But if you follow him, he essentially rejects religion. Like he accepts it, but he doesn't do it formally. He doesn't do it properly, and he ends up, whatever ends up happening to him. Go watch the movie. But Jessica, who doesn't join the cult, does make it out. She goes back, and so I think that there is a positive swing here, from a perspective of like having some higher purpose other than just self wealth and like being flashy, right? Which is obviously what Thomas wants.
Yeah. Uh, I did want to ask you about shooting in Philly, but while we're on the topic of the film specifically, I see that it's listed as a thriller. And like I was sort of scratching my head. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm waiting for that to happen. But to me, it came across as a dark comedy.
Yeah.
And so I think that side of it is very clear. And Thomas is like he's our main character, but I think we're using him as like a prism as the audience to see his worldview more so than like believe in him or necessarily cheer for him. So how do you view the role of humor in examining larger emotional stakes for your characters?
This is a great question. I love that question. Okay, so uh, I'll answer the first bit first, which wasn't a question, but is getting to something. So yes, it is listed as a thriller. I would say the trailer also looks very thriller esque. You get a little bit more humor from the trailer, but like really, it is thriller esque. I think that it's that's a bit of a marketing thing. I think like those just perform better. They kind
Yeah.
of hook you in a bit. The log line suggests a bit of humor as well. Like it's written in a way that's like a little bit humorous. And also the poster is like pink with a pig. So like you're not getting like
Yeah.
super serious, like whatever, right? Um, so it's trying to grab both of those groups. So that's more of a marketing thing. In terms of his character, we break the fourth wall in a way that is very subtle, but like he will look dead into the camera and say things. And sometimes it feels like, okay, like he's speaking to us and like, okay, so like we're one of the people. And we want that feeling. We want the feeling of, yes, you can grab onto him as someone that, maybe you're sympathetic to, maybe you're not. Maybe you want to see him have a downfall, right? There's people like that. Like everyone who watches Kill Tony, like some of those people you're like, I hope this guy is awful because he seems like a douchebag. And sometimes you're like, oh, she's so sweet. I hope she does really well. And then she kills, right? And so people watch for both reasons, like someone's downfall and someone's rise. And I think it's okay to have both of those for his character. But what we do want is to see if you're a young man who's like one of these people who's accessible, or you're like a parent who maybe has children who's on the internet and you don't know what they're watching. The whole point is to see how easy it is to fall into that trap. And obviously, like, yes, it's even easier because it's a film and we set things up, but he has setbacks and it doesn't always work, and he's kind of finding his way and his voice to get there. But it is kind of that easy. I mean, you hear people who literally fall for like joining ISIS from like Kansas. It's like, how the fuck does someone go and join ISIS? Like that is a crazy, but they do. Like there are people out there who will fall for it. And I think that it's worth noting that the way that they get them is like kind of through bullying. It's like the reverse of what you would think. It's actually not, hey, we'll give you the world. We'll like be the nicest person ever to you. You'll like have a home. It's like, no, you're a loser. You're terrible. You're nothing. But I can give you something. Like I can give you more, but you have to get there. You have to give in. And Scientology seems a lot like this. Get your, Thetan readings and then, pay $500 and you're in, right? Like, and we'll get you better. Um, I think that that's something that people really kind of need to understand. And again, I think by doing it in a sarcastic, dark humor, we can talk about things that are like rough, tough, not really, it's very dramatic things usually in most movies, but we're able to talk about it in a very nonchalant way that just gets to the root of the problem much quicker. No one has to dance around it. He can just say the thing out loud. Um, and I really like that in all of my work. Like as much as possible, like future projects I have down the line coming up, a lot of them deal with, pretty serious things, substance abuse or suicidal tendencies or whatever it may be. But by having it be kind of humorous and dark, I can have a character who will just say the thing. Like, oh, I haven't killed myself yet because I've thought, well, then I'll wreck the car. My parents will be pissed at me about wrecking the car. Isn't that so funny? Because I'd be dead. Who would care? But like, people will think like that. Like, there are people who think, well, I shouldn't kill myself in the car because then the car will get like, well, who the fuck cares? But now you can get to that. You don't have to dance around it. You don't. It doesn't feel weird that they're just saying the thing because that's what the genre is. That's what it works in a kind of a funny way. So it's not for everyone, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Thriller is obviously a lot more broad reaching, and so that's the marketing bit. But I like being able to tell stories for potentially a smaller group that's going to appreciate it a lot more. I think.
No, I think that's a healthy appetite to have for it, but sort of like structurally, it seems like the beginning of the movie is sort of more aware that it is a comedy and wants to include some of that. Like the way that the character portrayal is a lot more heightened, a lot more I don't know, like bigger gestures as the person before the transformation. And as things begin to like make their way through the movie, that sort of the comedy gets like squeezed and squeezed and squeezed. And then the thriller does take over
Yep.
and we start to see, I think for me what was maybe most fascinating was like the intoxication of the main character of what is happening to Thomas, because his approach to what he wanted to do was, like, he views the church, or the priest at least, as someone who's like being able to take advantage of the system. So he's like, I'll just start my own religion because that's the easy way to do it. But then gradually throughout the course of him doing that, what starts as this thing for him to just be a vehicle for him to make money, like, he starts to become the guy that is scary. He becomes
Yep.
the cult leader. So in a way, it's like, I don't know. What I wrote down was like absolute power corrupts. And so him having that
Yep.
little taste of power, going from feeling small, feeling inadequate. I mean, when we see him in the job interview, and even when there's, I can think of flashback to it, you can see that he's picking at his nails and his cuticles, like his posture is weak. Like, you see all the things that he sort of like hated about himself. He feels to like be like he's excising, right, from his body. And as he becomes this other person, as he becomes like father, we see Thomas like shrink and shrink and shrink. And that, I think, is like the tipping point. Like, that whole curve for him is where the movie goes from its, I think, comedy roots into its thriller aspect. And it's a fascinating character study for him. And so I want to know, like, when talking to Halston, like, what did you talk to him about when developing the character? Was this something that you just left entirely in his hands, or were you like, hey, these are the kind of people that I think are sort of what we want to point at here?
Love the question. We work a lot in pre-production to make sure that we can get to that. And all of these little changes that you see scene to scene are things that are entirely purposeful,
Yeah.
right? So you want to have the shy guy who's, slunched back, doesn't quite have that level of confidence, up until the point where you can get him to such a level of confidence that the old him doesn't even seem to be the same person. Like that kind of transformation needs to happen. It does happen. And it's really important because you hit it spot on, is that power corrupts 100% of the time. It just simply does. You even see it in like game shows where someone will be like randomly awarded like team captain, and then all of a sudden like that person just becomes a dick, like for no reason. Like it doesn't make any sense. The Stanford prison
Prison
experiment,
experiment.
like
Yeah.
great example, like makes no sense. But this is just how it works. This is just how like that is it. And if you're the one person who's like kind of cognizant of reality and you have like a higher IQ than most people, and you're like, guys, what they're our friend. Everyone snaps at you, like so you can't feel like you can do it. And we've seen this throughout history. I mean, obviously the Nazis, and you go Paul Pot, you just go down the list. Like it's always been like that. Neighbors turn on neighbors, and it just evolves really quickly. For Holston and I, we talked a lot about what is the tone level and what is the level of what is the point in which we have confidence? How do we display that confidence? And how do we emotionally get the audience to follow us along without you being, for lack of a better term, a douchebag like too soon, right? Because
Yeah.
you want that first 10 minutes to feel bad for him, to feel empathy. Oh, I've been there. Oh, I have student debt. Oh, I feel like I don't want to start at the bottom either, right? You want to grab people where they are, because if you just start at him being a cocky douchebag, no one is ever gonna watch the whole thing. They're gonna be like, "Oh, fuck this kid! Like, what the hell?" But then he kind of becomes like exciting almost by doing that. Like, "Oh, this guy, he's crazy. Like, what is he gonna do next? This is nuts. He's really getting there." So we discussed, we probably met 4 or 5 times doing table reads as well with other people, running lines, talking about, which scenes are the most important, which scenes should we really, really focus on to make sure, okay, this is it. For instance, the wedding ring scene where that is a really hard scene because he goes from playing this character that has pretty high level of confidence, maybe he's like an 8 out of 10. And then she comes in, she sits down, all right, he's going to propose now. And so he flips back to his actual self. He's not playing a role anymore. Now he's playing him because he does love her. It's like a genuine feeling for something that was completely fake a moment before. But then she rejects him because she thinks, well, this is not the real him, right? And now from going, so he goes at an 8 to maybe like a -8 to like a 10, because now he's right back and now he's angry. And like angry him is so much more violent, so much more problematic. Where now instead of him being boisterous and like benevolent and kind of over the top, right? Now he's just mean. Now he's quiet. Like you don't want the quiet guy right? The guy who's normally bubbly, who's now dead silent, is a dangerous dude. You don't want that guy. And so now he turns quiet and he just tells you the way it is, and you're going to do it, and that's it. And people fall in line. And so yeah, it's a lot of pre-production, and it's not just with him. It's with, honestly, all of the main cast members. And the smartest thing we did, and if you're watching this and you're a filmmaker yourself, like, we put Holston and Dell and Therese in the same house to live with each other during production. So they were together for 3 weeks. And that was genius, because then they were running lines at night. They would come to me in the morning, say, hey, I got a great idea for this scene. I'd be like, I don't want to hear it. Let's just do it. Let's shoot it. Get it on screen. Let's see what it is. The humming, the like chanting at the fireplace, that's entirely them. It's so stupid. I wish I could take credit for it. I did not. And so, yeah, I think I think it's really just putting in the work and being a very active director. You cannot, though, let actors just do things. That's a really bad recipe. Your job inherently as a director is to make sure that scene to scene, you're following along with, okay, are we hitting the tonal levels and is it consistent? Because, like, if someone's really hurt in scene A and then a week later you film scene B, and now they're like not really limping that much, every single person's watching that movie going, didn't just get shot? What the fuck? What? How is he walk? How is he normal? Like, that's fun. And like, you see big movies and TV shows where that happens, and you're always like, what the hell is going on? Like, and yeah, so that's something you really need to focus on. So you cannot just let them roam. It doesn't work. And that's not to be mean to them, but like, you got to focus on it. Yeah, 100%.
Well, I want to talk about Therese and Dell briefly because they play important, I mean, maybe even larger roles to some extent than Halston does. And in designing how you wanted this to play out, because you have the one leader, but sort of like a lot of things, like you want them to have a friend, right? And so in this case, he's got his best friend, he's got his girlfriend that he loves, people that really care about him, that are watching him go through this journey. And that's why I feel like they're almost maybe more the audience representative maybe than Thomas is in the film. So for like creative purposes, when designing this, like, how did you approach sort of the balance between the three of them? Because you have Halston, who's playing like a very charismatic Thomas, or like increasingly charismatic Thomas. You have Dell playing Anton, who's kind of reserved from the very beginning, but like you get the acknowledgement that he's aware and that he's smart, but also like needs his friend's help. You have Therese playing Jessica, who loves her boyfriend by all accounts, I think we can tell in the beginning, and she wants to see him succeed, but it's her that tells him to sort of like pump the brakes and be like, as long as you're doing this like for the right reasons, I support you, right? And so that's sort of like the first warning sign. And then the friend is the one who Anton is who we see kind of going throughout a lot of the steps with him, recognizing that there are like boundaries being crossed. So like strategically, how did you want to weight each of those roles in their like importance for the film?
Great question as well. So, it's really important throughout the story to me that everyone kind of has their development. When you're, pre-cult versus post-cult, even the extras, right? You're talking about pretty major supporting characters, but even the extras are like those characters, like they also need to have their journey. And for me, I'm a very visual person, so I literally just plot it out. Okay, so between pages 1 and 20, what should they look like for this character? 20 to 40, 40 to 60, and so on. And I really try to make sure, okay, in these scenes, internally looking in the script, does he develop? Why does he develop? Where does it happen? What scenes are important? And really making sure that we hit those things. In terms of Dell's role as Anton, there's always a role in every script where, like you said, like they represent the audience. So when we don't have an answer to something, that character is kind of the person who can ask it. And ideally in a comedy, that person's also a comedic outlet. So he's really that for us. He can always be there to kind of be out of the clue, doesn't really know things, and he can ask questions that maybe or obvious, maybe not, but we can actually just get an answer for the audience. And I don't like deploying that a ton. It's very expositional, but you got to, do it enough where people, okay, they understand what's going on. There is no huge confusion, at least. I maybe leave a little bit more up to interpretation than a lot of other directors, for sure, especially in the ending. But, when you're building out characters, not as much. Um, for me, he is very vital because he is that friend, and I think it's very relatable. I think both him and Teresa's roles are very relatable in either a friend of someone who's going through something. Now, obviously, Holston's character is not, addicted to pills or going through anything like that, but he's almost following the same downward spiral as if he was like an alcoholic. Like he's almost following that same pipeline. And so either it's the best friend who's like, I don't even recognize my friend anymore. And like how tragic that is. And trying to be there for him and be supportive, but at the same time, like resist it to try to get him better. And then the girlfriend who also like you care, you love, maybe you saw this version of your life with them, right? Maybe you see this like 30 years from now version with them where you have kids and a house that now all of that's in jeopardy and you are willing to hang on to that as hard as possible, as much as possible to make sure that it doesn't leave. Because again, once you start getting those thoughts of this is what life could be like in however long, you don't want that to go away if it's a good, vision. So I think that they're both very tragic characters and they have like very tragic relationships with Holston. And I think in a very normal way that you see in reality is that they end up becoming much closer to each other. Right. They don't have that close a relationship in the beginning, but by the end, obviously they're like pretty close because they've struggled through the same exact thing. Right. And so if your lead isn't someone who is super embracing of the audience, not someone that people really necessarily want to champion. Maybe they're a bad guy or maybe they're a villain or whatever it may be, right? You kind of have to have someone else there that people can be like, oh, I feel a little bit like this person. I can kind of empathize. I wish things are better for this person. And those two did a phenomenal job playing those roles. They really did. And they both develop kind of in their own way to capacity that obviously, Alan's character is supportive, like blatantly supportive, always hesitant, always kind of being like, oh, dude, I'm really not sure. But he is always going along with it. Whereas she says she's supportive once, and then she's pretty much not supportive any other time. Like she's more or less rejecting it time and time again. She's just very passive about it until obviously she starts challenging him, and then the things go poorly. Uh, but yeah, they're vital characters. I mean, those side characters, you're doing yourself a disservice if you're not developing them almost more than your lead, quite frankly.
Yeah, and I think with the two of them, I mean, I might be misremembering, but I think the first scene is with the two of them in the record store. So like the movie starts with the two of them and then ends with the
Yep.
two of them, and those are, I think it's an interesting bookend. But I want to know, like, creatively, with this being like a heightened satire sort of concept, like not actually a playbook on how to start a cult, it's much more of a
Yeah.
cautionary tale, of course. How did it feel creatively compared to your previous work?
Oh, I don't know. I loved it. I love just being on set, being able to tell stories. As long as the story is something that I can relate to, and I really feel like there's something deeper. That's really all I really care about. I have a second movie now that's going to come out later in the year called The Psychic Files. That's a suspense horror kind of thing. I'm not really the biggest horror guy. I really love suspense and thrillers, and so that's kind of where the film
Mm.
landed ultimately. But even for a film like that it's about a psychic. Like I've never been to a psychic. Well, I have been to a psychic now, but up until I was writing, I had not like gone to psychics. I went once for, seeing what it's like and what they do. But even that, like it plays on things about social media and what does it mean to have followers and like, okay, yeah, you have 100,000 followers, but guess what? When the front door to a psychic place locks and you can't escape and someone's trying to kill you, those 100,000 people don't really give a shit about you and they're not helpful and there's no Wi-Fi and you're fucked. Like, so as long as the theme grips me, I'm quite content with anything I'm doing, and that I try to be as forgiving as possible to myself. Like something I'm working on now that's what I'm filming in March, April is a game show. Like I grew up on Game Show Network with my family. We would watch it all the time. And so being able to like show run a game show, like I love that. Like I'm doing a TV thing right now that's like half podcast, half sitcom in Philly. Like I love that to death. Like, so I don't know. For me, I'm not, I love satire to death. I love The Lobster. I love movies like The Lobster. But it's not the only thing I do. You know, quite frankly, if I can write, well, the old Marvel, not really the new stuff, but the old Marvel, like I love that stuff too. I would write that equally. So I'm fairly genre agnostic. It's more about, does it speak to me? Can I tell something through this? Not as like a, as a like a political mindset, but as like a, maybe this is a better way, a better view for the world. Maybe this is like a better way to live. And like you say, cautionary tale, don't start cults. Like, yeah, maybe it's better not to tell a bunch of poor, losers, quote unquote, that you can cure everything about them. Like, maybe leave that to their, shrinks or something. Maybe don't do it yourself. Yeah.
So, what is it like filming in Philly or in and around Philly, I should say, right now? I mean, I don't think I don't know if there's like anything in this film in particular where I was like, okay, this I can recognize a location, but like,
No.
what is it like, sort of like filming regionally, and what was the casting process like for this film?
Love that question as well because I love Philly. So I, born, raised in on the main line, which is just outside the city. I have never really lived anywhere else. I went to school down North Carolina, like I said, but that's about it. For me, everyone always says like, go to Hollywood, go to Hollywood. The truth is Hollywood is like dying. Like, and that's not to say that there will not
Yeah.
be more content made. There is more content made today than there has ever been content made. So the idea that like there's not money going towards film is just complete crap. It's just a matter of where is that money going, how much is it going, stuff like that. And I think the reality is that once you go to Hollywood, you're just another director at that party with 10 other directors. And I think that that is really bad. And it's almost a microcosm for how streaming works too. So How to Start a Cult, we had distribution offers. We could have been on Tubi. We probably would have been on like Stars and like, you would have had us on like Amazon, like whatever. Like you would have had us all over these places. And we didn't, we turned all those deals down. They were bad deals, but like from pretty good companies. But the reality
Yeah.
is like, if I do, people then say, oh, go to Bitmax, like just put it up yourself. And then, whatever, it's more professional. Okay, that's fine. The problem is that you're still on Netflix or on Amazon or on Apple or Tubi or whatever it is. Like you're still one film out of tens of thousands of films. And there is no way to stand out when you have Chris Pratt on the cover of 20 movies, right? Or Scarlett Johansson or whoever it may be.
Um,
So in order for you to stand out, to kind of build yourself as a brand, to build yourself as a filmmaker, finding people who like your work and want to engage with you as an artist or as a filmmaker, whatever it may be, or a storyteller, which is what I personally view myself as, like you kind of need to be individual and you need to be willing to forego potentially, maybe not, but potentially kind of that glamour. So for me, I really care about where I grew up. I love Philadelphia, so I wanted to stay in Philly. My second movie is Philly, and we show parts of the skyline, the skyline, and we go to Philadelphia Art Museum. I wanted to be a little bit more engaged with the city. That film actually allowed me to do that. This first one really wouldn't have made much sense, so we really didn't. But if we could have, I would have. And that's why, like, again, that sitcom I'm doing, like, we're basing that in Philly. I want that in Philly. I want to bring the work there. I have a crew that I love who are all locals. For casting, a lot of the extras and stuff, they're from the area. They're people who work at CBS or they work at Taco Bell or they work wherever they work. And it's a lot more work to get them ready, but they did a great job in this film. And then for those key roles, that's really about flying them out. So, Therese, we had about 8,000 people submit for that role. As Jessica, we go through all of them. She happened to be from New York. A lot of them were from LA. So she took the train down. Holston was from LA. Lou Temple was from LA. So, you end up getting thousands of submissions for those kind of roles that are, a little bit more broad. I don't usually put racial things on there unless like it's like really neat, necessary for some reason. I kind of just let it figure out. Obviously, Lou was always going to be Lou because either it was Lou or it was going to be someone else of like that kind of stature. We wanted someone who had a little bit of a name at least. So, I don't know. Casting is a very tedious process and a lot of time, but the reality is like you get back so much more than you put in from a like time to value scale. It's worth it to find those people who really understand the role, really understand how to act, what it means to act. And I think we, in large part, even for people who are locals, we found people who knew what they were doing.
Yeah, I mean, the cast is good. I feel like all of the followers, I mean, some of them have like larger sort of footprints than others.
Yep.
Like Colin, obviously. And is it Nathan? The character name American Beef? Is that
Nathan. Yeah.
yeah. So like I think you got good people in those supporting roles, and it helped sort of enrich the film in a very like I don't know, lived in is kind of maybe like a little esoteric of a term, but without feeling like any of those roles needed to have like a super recognizable face in them and still feel like real people in that environment. I think, so you got your value out of it, but I wanted to circle back quickly to sort of like talking about deals and distribution and that kind of thing because I had talked to another filmmaker who had gotten his film up on Tubi, and he was talking to me about sort of it being good, but also how the metrics sort of don't necessarily add value to his approach because yeah, sure, it's on a streaming platform where people can see it, but there's no way for him to know when people see it. And so
Hmm.
like as a filmmaker, obviously you want to try to get people to see your movie. That has to be a consideration. Like you said earlier that you kind of you're accepting of wanting to have the movie focused on the people that actually like it matters to, and
Yep.
not having to worry about sort of outside stuff, but you still want people to see the film. So in this, I mean, you go straight to the website, can buy the film, you have DVDs of the film, so it's like a sort of direct to consumer market. And when sort of developing other projects like moving forward from this, like is this something that you sort of want to have as the model for everything, is like direct to consumer?
It mixed. So it depends on the project. The beauty is that you go first year in filmmaking, you really have like nothing. You're going from zero to maybe one project, and then you kind of get to year two, or you kind of get there now at year three with one film done and out, a second one like finished but going to go out. Now I kind of open myself up. So now I'm working on projects that are scripts that are like 10, $20 million budgets with, directors actually attached and producers attached. Like hopefully that happens the next year or two. Anything down to like a game show, right? That's like not very expensive. For me, like the deals are sales agent takes, 15%, $3,000 as well. And then the distributor is going to take 25 to 35%. They're going to own it for 8 years and they're not going to give you any money for it. And the first 20,000 go to them. So you end up with 40 to 50% gone. All of the data comes in, like you said, the metadata is bullshit. Like cannot trust it. They are fucking liars. And these are people who have never built anything in their entire life. And they didn't make your film. They took zero risk to make that film. And so the idea that they deserve 50% for nothing is like laughable beyond belief. So cannot harp on that enough. They're scams. Don't do it. It's not worth it. If you're at a studio level, completely different. Okay. But if you're an indie person, stop taking those deals. Like it's not worth it. And it's not going to change unless you try to get it to change. The reality is that like 90% of indie films lose money. And the reason for that in large part is because of two things. One, either they take these shitty deals and then essentially your film is just gone. Or two, it is actually a good film and you did good business, but then you stopped. A lot of indie filmmakers just never make it past 2 years of attempting, 3 years of attempting. And what you see statistically is like the people who made a lot of money and like make a lot of like Marvel movies or whatever else, their first movies make a lot of money in large part because like it didn't make money for 5 years and then they went to make something at Disney and then all of a sudden people went, oh, what is Dogtooth? Oh wow, Begonia was so good. Let me go see Dogtooth. Like it must be good too. And so they go back and watch. And I think that that's great, but that is like, we shouldn't kid ourselves on why those films are successful, those first round ones, because they can be even critically successful as your first film, but they probably financially weren't. I think that's something people don't really understand. So for me, I really wanted to have ownership over the films. I wanted to make sure that in 10 years, if I go off and I make a big movie with Scarlett Johansson, like we're still owning that. My investors own that. And it's not that that sudden bump is going to go, 50% to someone else who doesn't deserve it, didn't take any risk. And I also think in the meantime, if I have one DVD sale, well, that is more DVDs than it's going to sell going with the normal distribution people. If I have one T-shirt sell, it's more of the T-shirts than we'll ever sell with the distributor. Like every single metric, if one person does it, and a lot more, thousands of people have rented the film. Okay, thousands of people. I have clips on YouTube that have gotten 20, 30, 60,000 watches, and it's because listen, it actually does resonate, and there is a way to market your content in a way that these companies will not do, and they don't give a shit at all about you as a filmmaker. So you need to carry yourself, and that's why I reach out to people like you. I do these kind of podcasts because I think it's important for my work to get seen, my name to get seen, my face to get seen. And so it all kind of, when I go to make a second film, you're now, and anyone listening to this is more likely to go watch that second one, right? It isn't just one and done. This film and that film have nothing in common. It's like, no, they do have something in common. It's me, and maybe the show has something in common, and maybe this. And I think that that's the future. I think it's a lot of owning your own stuff, keeping that ownership, going directly to consumers. Maybe you have 100,000 YouTube subscribers. Maybe you make a film for $100,000 and you sell it to them on a Patreon account, and now they can, a limited release T-shirt. Like that is going to be something that is going to happen. And you're going to build your own community of people. It's not going to be millions of people. It's going to be tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands for most people, but they're going to really like your stuff and they're really going to engage. And that's what you need as a creative. You really just need that small niche group that cares about your work. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I see it going. And I'm really into the business side of the industry. I'm really fascinated by what it could be, what it is, where it came from. For the game show, the way we're financing that is through sponsors. Like there is no actual funding from an equity perspective. It's just them investing, 25, 50K into it. And then us, presented by so-and-so. And, this is the Oreo challenge. And, now sponsored by Oreo, right?
Yeah.
And like being able to do that. But like that, how is that different than what Netflix is doing? Like Netflix, yeah, they have subscription models, but guess what? If you're on the free plan or the low plan, they're just getting ad revenue off you. That's how cable worked. They made a TV show on CBS, and then there's just commercial, commercial, commercial. So, like as an indie filmmaker, you need to get with that time. You need to understand, okay, like if it works for them, it can work for me. It might take some time, but I can find that community. I can do this. And that's kind of what I'm working on now. I mean, it's the same with the YouTube. Like I have 7K now on YouTube, which 8 months ago I started and I didn't take seriously for the first 5 months. And then now in 2 months, I've gone up like 4K. It's like, okay, like if you subscribe to me on YouTube, you are 10 times as likely to watch my film.
Yeah.
And so if I can get that to, 30K in a year, right? Oh, okay. I can go make movies and I can sell it directly to these people who care about my work and care about the story. Some are going to shit on it. Some are going to love it. They're going to have arguments. I'll engage with those arguments. Like I love that. That's what storytelling is being able to engage. So, and I get DMs. Like honestly, I have like no following now whatsoever. I get DMs all the time on Instagram. People telling me they loved it, they hated it. Can we talk? I take calls of people who have watched my movie for no other point than they wanted to talk to me. And I don't care. I love that. Like I think it's great. That is the beauty of the social media. So it's all one. I don't know. It's all
Yeah.
ingrained.
Well, I mean, I think your appetite for the business side of things, number one, will serve you well. I mean, you're young, you have a lot of your
Hopefully.
future ahead of you. But I mean, even like I'm 41. And so even a lot of people that are in my circles that are like either like film podcasters or people that I know that are like sort of habitually online film people, right? There is a large pushback against the current studio model. And so I think there's like a healthy appetite out there for stuff that isn't exclusively produced by studios, and I think the landscape will shift, especially with a lot of like the acquisition deals happening and how that's going to shape the theater model in the next like 10 years. So I want I want to ask you though about how this approach works for you in terms of like how you budget your time, because I mean you had reached out to me originally, I don't know, several months ago,
Yeah.
and like I had just honestly like forgotten, and I know you had reached out and we had chatted a little bit, and I was like, okay, I got to do this, and then I'm busy doing this show. I'm like doing the same thing for my show that you're trying to do for your movies. It's like, okay, I got to like invest time here, I got to reach out to these people, I got to try to grow the following here, I got to try to like sell to sponsors here. So how much I guess like ROI do you get out of sort of these relationships, and how much of your time is sort of dedicated to personal interaction when you also have like a large business consideration, you know?
Yeah, it's the life of a filmmaker is actually very misunderstood. I think a lot of young people think, because I'm very old,
Yes.
I think a lot of non-actual film people imagine the life of a filmmaker to be me shooting stuff all the time. I'm only on set about 2 months out of the year, maybe a month and a half out of the year. As of now, that'll change as I get, bigger and better, obviously. Um, but I'm engaged at the present moment. I'm actively either a showrunner, director, producer, or primary writer, and an owner of a startup as well, outside of film, of like 14 projects. And so that's not to say like I will touch everyone every single day, but I will touch each of those projects probably once every 2 weeks, at least once. Some every day for like a large chunk, some, only once for an hour in that 2 week span. Um, but it is tough. So, for me, I think a lot of the way I view it is a lot of the first 3 years are just setting the stage for a career. Like you can't view it as, oh, I made one film, I'm in. That is like such an old mentality where someone, Mariachi was made and he just became this legend. It's like, yeah, go look at his actual IMDb page. Look at not John Smith, fucking Kevin Smith. Go look at his IMDb page. Like, yeah, they made that first movie. Tell me how long it was between that and the next thing they did, because I'm going to tell you right now, I guarantee you it's 4, 5, 6, 7 years, depending on who it is. And so people are like, oh, well, then they made all these movies. Like, right. But actually think about what it means to live 5 years between one movie and another. It is crazy. Like, that's a lot of time. But I think if you view it from my standpoint of no virality, you're not going to have this sudden overnight fame. It is going to be 3 years of setting the stage. What does that mean? It means reaching out to podcasters, being organized about that. If they say yes, but then you never do it, send them another follow-up email. Right at this point, I've done maybe a dozen podcasts, and a lot of people who DM me are people who have listened to podcasts who then go watch the movie. And that's not even the ROI. I know your question was the ROI. The ROI isn't now. That is
No.
short-term thinking. The ROI is in 3 years when I go and I try to raise $1 million for the first time instead of 80,000 and then 200,000 for my second movie. But I go to try to raise 1 million. Now I have all these podcasts, and this person just wrote Movie John from Philadelphia. They just wrote an article about my film and me. Like, that's a nice little bump. And it's not a bump for the film. Like, yes, the film's great. This film will make money when I go and make a Disney movie. That's when it's going to make money. It's not going to make money now. I mean, whatever. It made a couple $1,000s now. Great, right? But it won't make $1 million. It's just not going to happen. But it will once I make something that's worth $10 million. And the way to get there is, do you have a YouTube following? Are you being in the spotlight? Are you talking about your work as like a creative instead of just the work is the work and
Yeah.
they're not linked? And I think a lot of filmmakers view it as that second one where it's like, oh, I don't have to be known. I wish that were true. I wish I could just do my work, stay under my desk, and like keep grinding. I love that. I love writing. I write at this the past 2, 3 weeks. I've probably written 20 to 30 pages a day of screenplay.
Impressive.
Let alone another probably 20 in editing other screenplays. So it's probably like 50 total. Uh, but like you can't actually get anywhere by doing that. I mean, you do, you need to do it a lot, but like, I need to do things like this. And even if it's only 10 people who listen, it's 10 more people who know me.
Yeah.
Sometimes these podcasts are like 30,000 people. And then guess what? Like, okay, now a lot more people know my name, and they're going to know in 5 years when something comes out and they see my name, oh, that's that guy. And that's what I'm building towards. And I think that that's really the better mentality. And that's what YouTube allows me to do. Quite frankly, it's just a place to grab everyone, turn them towards that. They can see little reminders of who I am over time, talking about my work, talking about things I'm up to, what projects are coming down the line, BTS from them. And again, eventually it gets to a point where, okay, there's like a nice little group that supports him, likes his work. And by the way, he actually can make a movie that looks good and tells a fun story and whatever. Like, you need to have both, not just the skills, but also, unfortunately, the personality too. It's just the name of the game these days.
Yeah, it's a more front-facing business than it used to be, and
Yep.
hopefully we'll get somewhere between 10 listeners and 30,000 for this, and you can get a few more followers out of that. I want to ask you a technical sort of ish question. Uh,
Shoot, why not?
what mistakes did you well, what mistakes are you glad that you didn't repeat from previous efforts?
Mm.
And was there something that you did this time out where like you finally felt confident enough to be like, now I'm doing this thing that I've wanted to do?
Don't trust producers in the slightest when you're starting out. There's I've always been a very stubborn young man. I really do not give a shit what people say to me. I'm kind of known for being the guy at the party who will say things that's like mildly inappropriate, but maybe everyone was thinking. And I just have zero filter. My girlfriend is not charmed by these realities of me, but I really just say things. Um, some people find very funny, but I think they think I'm joking, and I'm usually not. Uh, despite that, so even I failed in understanding that people in this industry have no idea what they're talking about, and they will just follow whoever the most recent great person is. And so you need to act as though you've been there before, and you need to understand that having a voice is essentially your job. Like, a consistent voice that goes scene to scene, but like having a voice. I allowed a producer, allegedly, to take advantage of the set financially, allegedly, and just like story wise, and like change how what the story was. That part did happen, non allegedly, although both really did happen. Not whatever. And so, like, you need to watch. Obviously, a lot of them are scumbags who will steal money and then bad mouth you behind your back to investors. And then one of the investors will call you after those calls and say, hey, did you know, dipshit was saying this about you? And then you go, I had no idea. And then you start looking at the finances because you already had a suspicion, but you weren't sure. And then you find them and then you threaten them with lawsuits. And then they send you the money back that day. So like you're going to have those experiences. And as though it's like funny and like I joke about it now, that story happens to so many young filmmakers, even older filmmakers. Like, it happens time and time again where there are just bad actors in this industry, and they will take advantage of you. And so, yeah, I think it's really important to watch out and have a confidence in your voice that, yes, it can seem cocky, but it's not. Like, it's you on a mission. You need to trust yourself. And quite frankly, especially if the investors invested in you and not in the producer, but like they gave the money to you, it was written in your name, those people can go fuck themselves. So I hired a producer who allegedly took money in the first film. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. But magically the money came back eventually and we finished the movie. It did delay us 3-4 months. So fun. And then was shit talking me behind my back to investors. Also so fun. Fuck that guy. That part's not allegedly. But like for the second film, which was more money, and he would have made more money from that than he may have taken, may not have taken. For that one, I didn't hire a producer at all. There was no producer because I don't know what a producer does. Every time a producer has gotten involved in my life, it has magically derailed the project or taken twice as long as it should have. or is still going on. So I find them not to be very useful, and I find their notes not to be particularly useful. I try to avoid them like the plague. I had an AD on my second movie who's actually a really nice guy, but he kept pulling me into rooms and like bringing up things that were not important, but acting like they're like the most important thing on earth to like validate who he was as a creative. And that's okay. There's a lot of people like that I've met in my life, and like you don't want to be a dick to them, but you're also on set, and every minute on set is like $100 out the door for my budgets. For Marvel, it's like $10,000 out the door, and so you can't do that. Like you can't have a 10-minute conversation about lunch. Like we're not doing that. That's not my job, dude. Like you do that. And so I had to tell him like kind of rudely, but in the middle of the day where I'm like I don't have time to like sugarcoat it. It's like if you ever pull me into a room again, you're fired, and you can just assume you're off. Like you can just leave. We'll pay out the salary. I don't care. Like you can't do this again. And I just left. Like the whole point of me not having a producer was that no one could do that to me. So yeah, I think that was the biggest rule. That's kind of two rules. Fuck producers, don't hire them at a young age. And then second is absolutely nobody knows what they're talking about. You see some of the biggest directors in the world have ginormous flops. Okay. They don't know what they're talking about. They like their stuff and you like your stuff, and that's great, but they do not know anything. That's my 2 cents. Yes.
That's fair. I mean, I think in a creative industry, you just sort of have to trust your instincts, and
Yes.
sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I don't know. As I've gotten older, I just realized I think like most people don't know really much. Like I'm 41. I'm like, I don't know shit.
Yeah, and like most people are not doers. This is the other thing that I realized. Like, you talk to agents, you talk to managers and producers, and it's like they've never made a film. Like I had to go out there and raise $80,000 as a not even graduate of a college yet for a script that no one asked for. No one goes to you and says, "Oh, I wish there was a movie about this." No one does that. Okay. I had to go there, ask for checks. 4 different people wrote me checks. I then had to come back, hire people, do an LLC, make the fucking thing, took all the risk on. If it crashes and fails, I'll never be a filmmaker. If it does well, okay, I might have a career. Thankfully, it came out good. I don't even believe in God. I don't know why I did that, but whatever. Like, so the idea of you then going to a distributor who's like going to tell you, hey, that you need to change the name of the movie. It's like, fuck you, I do. The reason you're a distributor is because you couldn't make it as a director or an actor. You're one or the other. That's the reality. You like couldn't make the movie you wanted to. So you had to buy them from other people because you're really just really rich. That's really what you are. And so I don't know. I don't know why we listen to these people anymore. And I think as the internet gets more democratized, all that shit's going away. There's no way. What's going to happen? And we're seeing it with that guy. I don't remember his name, but he's got millions of subs, and he just got his movie, which apparently is not good, in like 3,000 theaters across the country. Okay. It's because he has millions of subs. So they didn't take him at first. And then he's like, fuck that. I have millions of dollars and millions of people who are going to go watch this. And he just sent them an email and said, hey, put it in your thing. And they said, oh, I guess. It's like, yeah. And he sold out like all of the theaters. Like, of course he did. Obviously, that is going to be the future. You get 2 million subs, you go straight to theaters, you have all of the ownership, give it to nobody. That's what's going to happen. I just don't know. This is what Patreon is. It's been around. Like, it's not new. I'm just saying it for the first time as like a filmmaker instead of a YouTuber, but it's the exact same thing. And it's really hard to get there. Like, it's not to make it seem easy. I'm struggling to do it, but like, that's what's going to happen. That is what's going to happen. It just is.
Yeah, the future is going to be very interesting because social media, I mean, YouTube's been around for a lot longer than like some other social media platforms, but sort of the homogeny of all of them has created a much different landscape. But the reason that I do interviews like this and the reason that I created the Filmmaker and Focus series was to have these kinds of conversations. So number one, thank you. And
Thank you.
to also like combine the sort of the artistry discussion about the project itself and answer some of those creative questions, and also to have some of like the business and the career discussions, because I know like myself, a lot of other people that listen to the show, a lot of people that are in like similar circles as me, me specifically too, I'm interested in all of these things. And so like even when I started doing it, I was like, I don't know if anyone's going to want to listen to interviews, but that's kind of just like what I want to do because I have these questions and because I am interested in this subject. So
Right.
thank you for taking the time and making sure to crack the whip and reach out to me a second time when I stalled the first time, because these are things that need to happen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you having me on, and I love talking about my film, other films, whatever. I just love people who love movies. So I think the future is enormously bright in this industry, and I know a lot of people are getting worried about it.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to see more people telling more stories that are honestly a lot more sophisticated because of the tools that are going to come down the line. And you're going to get a lot of fewer people who are like holding the light stand, but you're going to get a lot more directors. Like you're going to get a lot more of like the main people telling their stories. And like, to be honest with you, a lot of the lighting people, a lot of the camera people, they want to be directors. So like, I think they're just going to be moving from that to that. Like that's my view. So I'm really excited for the future. I think it's great. And again, I'm glad we could chat about it, chat about the movie.
Well, speaking of the movie, let's close out on that because I know how I felt, but when people finish How to Start a Cult in 5 Easy Steps, what is the thing that you hope that they're still thinking about when the movie ends?
Ooh, what I hope they still are thinking about. That's a great question. I would have to go with power corrupts is a great one, but I think it ultimately comes down to having that feeling of, I'm lost, I don't have direction, I don't whatever is extremely dangerous, but even more dangerous is to fall for someone who tells you that they have all the answers. And and more these days like politics, everyone just says, well, if you get me, I got the answers. In sports, oh, you hire me as your head coach, you're going to be a Super Bowl champion. It's like, right, dude, right. Like, I think a lot of people make a lot of promises that they can't keep. And it's a really dangerous thing to do, particularly when you're dealing with people who feel extremely disenfranchised, who feel like they don't have a voice or a place to be in the world. So I hope that that's kind of a lasting impression of how dangerous that is. And Jessica, her character, she's the only one who doesn't really buy in, and it's no surprise that she's the one who is still around, able to talk about it, right there in church and like being able to cry about it because like, yeah, that's what a sane, rational person would do is cry because your boyfriend just maybe or maybe not to spoil died. Like who knows?
No.
So I hope that's what people leave with. Yeah. But I also hope they laughed. I hope they had some fun. I know it gets dark towards the end, but I hope it's an enjoyable kind of laughterful time. And I've sat in audiences at festivals where they've watched it, people who didn't know me or knew I was there, and it's so great. Like that feeling of people laughing is so great. That is what gets me going. Like that's what makes me want to make movies. So I love that.
Yeah, well, like I said, I appreciate your time. I wish you the best of luck in the future. And you know where to find me, so we'll be in we'll be in touch. But thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us for this spotlight session right here on Bad Movies We Love. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow the show, leave us a review, and share it with your fellow movie lovers. Thanks again to Wes for coming on the show and for reminding me to follow up about the interview in the first place. It was really great to sit down and chat with him about his new movie and to also pick his brain about what it's like being a young filmmaker in the modern landscape and what the future of filmmaking is going to look like. If you want to get in touch with Wes, you can find him at a Wes Clark Film on Instagram, and you can watch the movie at howtostartacultin5easysteps.com. Links for that will be up in the show notes, and while you're there, make sure you check out the rest of the Scheist Podcast Network at scheistpodnet.captivate.fm. We've got some news on deck for you in 2026. And until next time, stay curious and take care.